It was the ultimate betrayal, the kind of deception no woman should ever have to face. Alice Harris thought she had the perfect life, a loving husband, 2 beautiful children, and a home that radiated warmth and stability. But beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic marriage, a dark and twisted secret was lurking, one that would shatter her world in the most unimaginable way. Alice never saw it coming. She never imagined that the man she had vowed to love forever, the father of her children, was hiding a shocking affair. And not just with anyone, but with the one person she trusted the most. Her own mother. What you're about to hear is not just a story of infidelity. It's a story of lies, deception, and the devastating consequences of a love turned into a nightmare. How did Alice uncover the truth? And what happened when the shocking secret finally came to light? Stay with us as we unravel the chilling details of this twisted love triangle, one that led to an outcome no one could have predicted. Alice Harris always believed that if life wasn't perfect, hers was at least close to it. At 35, she lived a comfortable and fulfilling life in a quiet Florida suburb. Her days were filled with the joyful laughter of her children, Elliot, 8, and Molly, 5. Her husband, Adrian Harris, was a successful attorney at a prestigious law firm, well-respected in his field, and financially stable. Their marriage had weathered its fair share of ups and downs, but Alice always believed in their love. She met Adrian in college, she, a bright-eyed education major dreaming of shaping young minds, and he, an ambitious law student with a sharp mind and an even sharper charm. Their love blossomed quickly, and within a year, they were married. From the outside, they were the picture-perfect couple, successful careers, beautiful children, and a lovely home in an upscale neighborhood. Alice took pride in their life together. She cherished the simple things. Their evening walks, family game nights, and spontaneous weekend getaways to the beach. Even when work stress crept in, or the responsibilities of parenthood became overwhelming, she believed they were strong enough to get through anything. But then, things started to change. And they changed in ways Alice couldn't explain, at least, not at first. It began subtly. Adrian started staying late at work more often. He claimed he had bigger cases, more demanding clients, and endless deadlines. Alice, being the supportive wife she was, didn't question it at first. She knew how demanding the legal profession could be. But then, his behavior started shifting in ways she couldn't ignore. His once loving demeanor faded. The man who used to look at her with warmth and admiration now seemed distant, distracted. Their usual weekend outings stopped. The spontaneous, "I love you," texts became rare. And most troubling of all, he became overly protective of his phone, keeping it close, shielding it from her view, and taking calls in hushed tones. Alice tried to brush off the nagging feeling in her gut. Maybe he was just stressed. Maybe the demands of his job were weighing on him. But deep down, a small voice whispered, something was wrong. She confided in her mother, Clara, the woman she trusted more than anyone. Clara had moved to Florida to be closer to the family and was a constant presence in their lives. She was Alice's rock, always offering a listening ear and wise advice. Men go through phases, Clara reassured her one evening over coffee. Maybe he's just going through something at work. Give him time. Alice wanted to believe her. She wanted to believe that Adrian's growing distance was just a rough patch, that their love was still intact. But as the weeks passed, the unease only grew stronger. Then came the night that changed everything. One evening, while Adrian was working late, Alice decided to clean out their bedroom closet. She wasn't looking for anything in particular, just tidying up while the kids were asleep. But as she sorted through his old jackets, a small folded receipt fell onto the floor. Curious, she picked it up. It was from a hotel. A 5-star resort, one they had never visited together. Her heart pounded. It was dated just a few weeks ago. And the name listed under the second guest. Clara Harris. Alice felt the air leave her lungs. Her hands trembled as she clutched the piece of paper. Surely, this had to be a mistake. It had to be some kind of misunderstanding. But deep down, she knew. She knew. Still, she needed proof. She needed to see it for herself. That night, Alice made a decision. She wouldn't confront Adrian, not yet. Instead, she waited. She watched. And she started piecing the puzzle together. What she uncovered in the following days confirmed her worst fears. A second phone hidden in his office drawer. Cryptic text messages deleted too quickly. And then, the ultimate betrayal. One Friday evening, when Adrian told her he was heading out of town for a legal conference, Alice followed him. Her hands clenched the steering wheel as she tailed his car, her heart hammering against her ribs. The destination? A luxury resort just a few miles away. And when she saw who greeted him in the lobby, her own mother, Clara, dressed in a silk robe, her hands brushing against his chest like a lover, her world came crashing down. It was real. The betrayal was real. And in that moment, something inside Alice shattered beyond repair. What happened next? How did Alice confront them? And how did this shocking discovery spiral into something even darker? Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. Alice stared at the phone screen, her hands trembling as she scrolled through the damning messages. This couldn't be real. The very idea that her mother and her husband, the two people she loved and trusted most, had been engaging in a secret affair was unfathomable. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she absorbed the messages. Passionate confessions. Secret rendezvous. Plans to meet at a hotel, again. Every message was another dagger to her heart, each word chipping away at the illusion she had built around her marriage and family. For a moment, she felt paralyzed. How long had this been going on? Had every affectionate moment between her and Adrian been a lie? Had her mother, her own flesh and blood, been betraying her behind her back all along? Alice wanted to scream, to throw the phone across the room, to wake up and find out this was all some horrible nightmare. But it wasn't. This was her reality now. The house was eerily quiet, the only sound the soft gurgling of the coffee machine. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, a stark contrast to the sickening betrayal that now hung heavy over her. Her mind raced with questions. Why? Why would they do this to her? How could her mother, the woman who had raised her, turned into her closest confidant, betray her like this? But anger wouldn't get her the answers she needed. She had to think. She had to be smart. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself. If they thought they could hide this from her, they were wrong. Alice had never been the type to jump to conclusions without all the facts. If they had been careful, if they had covered their tracks this well, she needed to be even smarter. So she took pictures, every text, every piece of evidence, every moment of deception. If Adrian and Clara thought they were being discreet, they had underestimated Alice. Then, as if on autopilot, she set the phone back exactly where she had found it and stepped away, her pulse pounding in her ears. She needed more proof. Alice didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of what she had uncovered pressing down on her like a boulder. Adrian had come home late, claiming to be exhausted from work, and kissed her on the forehead as if nothing had happened. She had never felt so disgusted. But she forced herself to play along. If she showed her hand too soon, they would try to manipulate her, twist the truth. No, she needed to catch them red-handed. The next day, she devised a plan. That morning, she packed up the kids and dropped them off at a friend's house. She needed them far away from whatever was about to unfold. Then, she placed a small recording device under the living room couch, just in case. And then, she waited. Alice had seen the texts. She knew that today was one of the days Adrian and Clara planned to meet while Alice was supposedly out. She sent her mother a text. Hey, Mom, I'm going to be out all afternoon. Want to grab dinner later? Her mother's response was quick. Oh, sweetheart, I'd love to, but I already have plans. Maybe tomorrow. Alice's stomach twisted. Lies. She sat in her car down the street, her fingers gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. Minutes passed like hours. Then, she saw it. Adrian's car pulled into their driveway. Alice's heart pounded in her chest. He got out, dressed casually, his suit jacket missing. And then, just as she had feared, another car pulled up right behind him. Her mother stepped out. Alice's nails dug into her palms as she watched Clara walk up to her front door, the home Alice built with Adrian, the home where their children lived. She let herself in without hesitation, as if she belonged there. As if she wasn't doing the most vile, unforgivable thing imaginable. Alice gave them 15 minutes. She needed them to feel safe, to get comfortable. Then, she walked up to the house, her heart pounding like a war drum. With one deep breath, she unlocked the front door and stepped inside. She didn't have to go far. There they were, Adrian and Clara, standing in the living room, their hands all over each other. The gasp that escaped Alice's lips was involuntary. The sound of betrayal. The sound of everything she had ever known shattering in an instant. Adrian and Clara jumped apart, their eyes wide with horror as they saw her standing there. Alice, Adrian started, but the words choked in his throat. Alice couldn't speak. She couldn't move. Her body felt frozen, trapped between the fury burning inside her and the disbelief crashing down like a tidal wave. Then Clara, her own mother, tried to speak. Sweetheart, I don't say a word. Alice's voice came out ice cold. Her hands clenched into fists as she stared at the two people who had ripped her world apart. How long? She demanded. Adrian opened his mouth, then closed it. His face was pale, caught between guilt and panic. Clara looked down, shame creeping over her features. But it was too late for shame. Too late for guilt. How long? Alice's voice rose. How long have you two been sneaking around behind my back? How long have you been lying to me? To my kids? Neither of them answered. The silence was deafening. Then, something inside Alice snapped. She grabbed the nearest object, a glass vase, and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall, the sound echoing through the house. You ruined everything. My marriage. My family. My trust. Do you even feel any remorse? Tears streamed down her face, but she refused to break. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, looking like a man caught in the headlights of an oncoming train. Alice, please, let's talk about this. Talk, she let out a bitter laugh. Talk. After everything you've done. There is no talking. There's no fixing this. Her mother sobbed. Sweetheart, I never wanted to hurt you. Alice turned to her, her voice dripping with venom. You were my mother. You were supposed to protect me. Not betray me like this. Adrian reached for her, but she stepped back. Don't touch me. You disgust me. Her hands shook as she turned away, her mind spinning with what to do next. And then she made a decision. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Alice was going to make sure they both paid for what they had done. But how? What happened next would leave everyone shocked. And it would turn this betrayal into something far more sinister. The room was suffocatingly silent, the weight of Alice's words pressing down like an unbearable storm. I know everything, Adrian. I know about you and my mother. The words were like a bullet to Adrian's chest. His hands trembled, his face drained of color, and for the first time in his life, he looked truly powerless. The confident, well-spoken attorney, the man who built his career on talking his way out of difficult situations, sat frozen, unable to form a single word. The tablet slipped from his hands, landing on the table with a dull thud. Alice stood tall, her body rigid with anger and betrayal, staring at him like a stranger. This was the man she had trusted, the father of her children. And yet, he had been sneaking behind her back, sleeping with her own mother. Adrian's mouth opened, then closed. He was scrambling for an excuse, but what defense could he possibly give? Finally, he choked out, "Alice, I don't lie." Her voice cut through the air like a blade. "I have the messages. The hotel receipts. I know everything." She reached into her pocket and slammed her phone onto the table, the screen lighting up with the evidence. Message after message. Love notes. Rendezvous details. The disgusting truth of their betrayal laid bare. Adrian's eyes flickered to the screen, his expression crumbling into something between fear and guilt. "Alice, please. I can explain." She laughed. A cold, bitter sound that had no joy in it. "Explain." Her voice was venomous. "Explain how you've been sleeping with my mother. Explain how you've lied to me, to our children, to our entire family." Adrian raked a hand through his hair, his chest rising and falling quickly. He was cornered. And Alice was not done. She took a step closer, her eyes flashing with years of misplaced love and trust. "How long?" she demanded. Adrian hesitated. "How long, Adrian?" He swallowed hard. Then, barely above a whisper, he said, "Almost 2 years." Alice's stomach turned. Her knees nearly buckled beneath her. 2 years. 2 years of secrets. 2 years of sneaking around while she had been living under the illusion that they were a happy family. Her breath hitched, her hands clenched into fists so tight her nails dug into her palms. She wasn't sure which hurt more, the fact that her husband had betrayed her so cruelly, or that her own mother had played a willing part in destroying her family. So all those holidays, birthdays, family gatherings. Alice's voice wavered, her fury barely contained. "You sat at my dinner table, looked me in the eyes, kissed our children goodnight, while you were sneaking off to sleep with my mother." Adrian hung his head, silent. But Alice was far from done. "You know what's funny, Adrian?" Her voice shook with restrained fury. "I almost believed you. When you stayed late at work. When you went on business trips. When you stopped touching me. I blamed myself. I thought I wasn't enough. That I had done something wrong." Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Adrian finally looked at her, his voice barely a whisper. "Alice. I never meant to hurt you." That was it. That was all he had to say. Alice's rage boiled over. "You never meant to hurt me." She let out a breathless laugh. "You cheated on me with my own mother. You destroyed our family. You humiliated me. But you never meant to hurt me." She grabbed his tablet off the table and hurled it across the room. It crashed against the wall, shattering into pieces. Adrian flinched, his jaw tightening. "Alice, stop. Stop." She took a step toward him, her voice trembling with rage. "You don't get to tell me what to do. Not anymore. You lost that right the second you touched my mother." A tear slipped down her cheek. But she wiped it away before Adrian could see it. She wasn't going to cry for him. She wasn't going to cry for her mother. They weren't worth her tears. She drew in a deep breath, her body tense with rage. Then she turned on her heel. "I want a divorce, Adrian." Her words hit him like a wrecking ball. "Alice, save it." She spun back to face him, her eyes burning with betrayal. "You're going to pack your things. You're going to leave this house. And you will never, ever touch me again. Adrian stood frozen, his world crumbling around him. Alice took a shaky breath, her hands trembling, her heart shattered into a million pieces. But she wasn't done yet. She still had one more person to confront. Her mother. And that confrontation would change everything. Alice drove to her mother's house, her mind spinning, her heart pounding with a mixture of fury, disgust, and pain. She had never expected her life to turn into something out of a twisted, nightmare-fueled soap opera. Her own mother. The woman who raised her. The woman who was supposed to protect her. She pulled up to the driveway, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. She had no plan. No script. All she knew was that Clara was going to answer for what she had done. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out of the car and marched toward the front door. She pounded on it with such force that the entire doorframe shook. Seconds later, Clara opened the door. Her eyes widened in surprise, but there was something else there too. Guilt. Alice didn't waste time with greetings. She pushed past her mother, stepping inside and slamming the door behind her. Clara took a shaky breath. Alice, sweetheart, don't call me that. Alice's voice was raw, trembling with emotion. Clara fell silent. Alice took a step closer, her eyes burning with rage. How could you? Clara swallowed hard. Alice. How could you? Alice's voice cracked, the pain bleeding through. You're my mother. My mother. How do you betray your own daughter like this? Clara looked away. I never wanted to hurt you. Alice laughed bitterly. Yeah. Well, congratulations. You did. Clara's lips trembled. Alice cut her off with a single, cold glare. I never want to see you again. You are dead to me. Clara sucked in a sharp breath, her face crumpling. But Alice didn't care. She turned on her heel and walked out of the house, slamming the door behind her. She didn't look back. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Because Alice wasn't broken. She was done crying. She was done hurting. She was done being their fool. And from that day forward, she was free. Alice stood outside in the dim glow of the streetlights, her body trembling, her thoughts racing. The cool night air did little to ease the storm inside her. She had just confronted Adrian, exposed his disgusting affair with her mother, and now she was at a crossroads. What was she supposed to do next? She wanted to scream. To cry. To break something. But instead, she just stood there, her hands clenched into fists at her sides, her breath shaky. Behind her, the house was silent. Too silent. Inside, Adrian sat in the dark, his mind unraveling. His entire world, his carefully constructed illusion of control, was crumbling. Alice knew everything. She had the messages, the proof. And now, she was standing out there, thinking. Thinking about what? Would she tell their children? Their friends? His job? Would she drag his name through the mud, destroy his career, ruin his entire life? He couldn't let that happen. The thought hit him like a lightning bolt. He had worked too hard. He had come too far. And now? He was about to lose it all, because he got caught. No. Adrian clenched his jaw, his breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. The fear turned into something else, rage. He was losing control. He was losing everything. And it was all because of Alice. Unless he did something about it. Alice was so caught up in her own whirlwind of emotions, she didn't hear the door creak open behind her. She didn't hear the slow, calculated footsteps moving toward her. She didn't feel Adrian's presence until a hand wrapped around her throat. She gasped, her body jerking in terror. Her fingers flew to his hands, grabbing, clawing, trying to pry him off. But Adrian's grip only tightened. "No. No," she choked out, her voice barely a whisper. Adrian's arms locked like a vice around her neck, crushing her windpipe. Alice thrashed, kicked, struggled. Her vision blurred as panic surged through her. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Her own husband. The man who had once held her close, kissed her forehead, whispered sweet promises, was killing her. Her nails dug into his arms, drawing blood, but he didn't stop. His jaw was clenched, his eyes cold. She knew too much. She was a threat. She had to be silenced. Alice's legs buckled. Her fingers grew weak. Her vision darkened. The last thing she saw before her world faded to black, was Adrian's emotionless face staring down at her. Adrian staggered back, gasping for breath. His hands were shaking violently. Alice's lifeless body lay sprawled on the ground. The moonlight illuminated her face, her once bright, warm eyes now dull and empty. Adrian's chest heaved. What had he done? But there was no time to panic. He had to act. If anyone found out what had happened, he'd lose everything. His career. His reputation. His freedom. No. He wouldn't let that happen. His mind worked quickly. He needed a story. A way to explain this. A way to make himself look like the grieving husband, not a murderer. And then, he had it. Adrian ran inside, turning on the kitchen faucet, washing Alice's scratches off his arms. He changed his clothes. He paced back and forth, rehearsing his words, perfecting his performance. And then, just before sunrise, he called the police. July 15, 2023. A quiet Florida neighborhood awoke to the flashing red and blue lights of police cars. Detective Jessica Miller, a seasoned investigator, stepped out of her unmarked vehicle, her sharp eyes scanning the scene. She had seen a lot of crime scenes in her years, but something about this one felt off. Adrian stood on the porch, disheveled, his eyes red and swollen. His hands trembled as he clutched his phone. "My wife." He croaked, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's dead. I found her in the backyard." Detective Miller studied him. His words were cold. Too cold. She had spoken to countless grieving spouses before, but Adrian's reaction? Something didn't sit right. "Tell me what happened," she said, her voice calm, measured. Adrian dragged a hand through his hair, looking down at the ground like a man barely holding it together. "It was an act. I went to bed early last night," he began, his voice shaking. "Alice wasn't in bed when I woke up this morning. I thought maybe she had trouble sleeping, but when I went outside..." He paused, swallowing hard. "She was just lying there. I tried to wake her, but she was already gone." Detective Miller narrowed her eyes. Something was wrong. "Did Alice have any health conditions?" she asked. Adrian shook his head. "Was there any sign of forced entry? Any struggle?" He hesitated. Then shook his head again. Detective Miller glanced at Alice's body. Something wasn't adding up. She knelt beside her, examining her neck. And that's when she saw it. Faint bruising. A clear imprint. Finger marks. Her heart dropped. Alice Harris hadn't just died. She had been strangled. And now, Adrian was the prime suspect. As the morning stretched on, the scene became more chaotic. Crime scene investigators dusted for fingerprints. Officers secured the area. And Detective Miller? She watched Adrian like a hawk. His story didn't make sense. His reactions were off. And then, they checked the security footage. Adrian never went to bed. He had followed Alice outside. He had come back in alone. It was all there, caught in the grainy black and white footage of their home's security cameras. Adrian Harris was a liar. And a murderer. Within hours, he was in handcuffs. The news of Alice's murder shook the entire community. People who had known Adrian couldn't believe it. A successful lawyer. A family man. A killer. And Clara? She never saw it coming. She had betrayed her own daughter for a man who had no loyalty to anyone. Now, Adrian was facing life in prison. And Alice? She had lost her life to the man she had loved. A husband. A father. A monster. But even in death, she had exposed the truth. And justice would be served. This tragedy serves as a chilling reminder that betrayal can come from the people closest to us. Alice trusted her husband. She trusted her mother. And in the end, they both destroyed her. But Adrian's crime would not go unpunished. And Alice's story would never be forgotten. The once respected attorney, Adrian Harris, was now a broken man, sitting in the cold, windowless interrogation room of the Florida State Police Department. Across from him sat Detective Jessica Miller, a woman with years of experience dissecting lies and unraveling the truth. She could see it, the guilt, the panic, the crumbling walls of a man who had lost control. "Adrian," she said, her voice even, measured. "You say you didn't want it to end this way. But Alice is dead. And we both know you were there when it happened." Adrian squeezed his eyes shut, his fingers gripping the edge of the table. He had already confessed, but the weight of his words was pressing down on him like a collapsing building. His mind was a battlefield. Would he try to backtrack? Claim he had been coerced into confessing? Or would he finally accept the reality of what he had done? Detective Miller leaned forward, watching him like a lion stalking its prey. "Tell me, Adrian," she murmured. "Did you ever feel guilty? When you looked your wife in the eyes, knowing you were sleeping with her mother? When you kissed your kids goodnight, knowing the truth? When Alice found out, what was your first thought? Guilt? Or fear that your secret would come out?" Adrian snapped. His eyes flashed with anger, his breathing ragged. "You don't understand. I loved Alice." Miller didn't flinch. "You loved Alice. And yet you strangled her to death in your own backyard?" Adrian's face contorted in anguish. She was going to ruin everything. She threatened to tell the kids, my firm, the entire world. He stopped, realizing he had said too much. Miller nodded slowly. There it was. The truth laid bare. Adrian hadn't killed Alice in a moment of passion or regret. He had killed her to protect himself. He hadn't cared about Alice's pain. Or the devastation he had caused. All he had cared about was making sure no one found out what he had done. The case exploded in the media. A high-powered attorney. A shocking affair with his wife's mother. A murder that unraveled in a seemingly perfect Florida suburb. Every major news network covered it. Talk shows dissected it. True crime forums were flooded with theories and outrage. The prosecution tore Adrian apart in court. They presented every piece of damning evidence, the messages, the security footage, the bruises on Alice's neck, the timeline of the crime. The jury didn't even have to deliberate for long. Within 2 hours, they returned with their verdict. Guilty. Adrian Harris was sentenced to 55 years in prison, without the possibility of parole. When the judge read the sentence, Adrian showed no emotion. No tears. No pleading. Just an empty stare, as if the reality of what he had done was finally sinking in. He had thrown everything away. His wife. His family. His future. And now, he would die behind bars. Alice's mother, Clara Harris, wasn't charged with any crime. But her life was destroyed nonetheless. The community turned against her. Her friends cut ties. Her own grandchildren, Elliot and Molly, wanted nothing to do with her. She had lost everything. Because of one selfish, unforgivable mistake. She left Florida shortly after the trial, disappearing from public life. No one knows where she is now. But wherever she went, one thing was certain, she would never escape the weight of what she had done. Alice should have been safe in her own home. She should have been able to trust her husband. She should have been able to trust her mother. But in the end, the two people she loved most were the ones who destroyed her. Her children, Elliot and Molly, were left without a mother. They had to grow up knowing that their father had killed her. That their grandmother had betrayed her. A once happy family, torn apart by secrets, lies, and the ultimate betrayal. And Alice? She would never see her kids grow up. Never hear their laughter again. Never live the life she had fought so hard to build. All because of Adrian's selfishness. Because of his fear of losing his reputation. Because of his need for control. Betrayal is one of the most dangerous forces in the world. It starts as a whisper. A secret. A lie. And then, before anyone sees it coming, it turns into something deadly. Alice's story should never have ended this way, but her death wasn't in vain. Because the truth did come out. And justice was served. No secret stays hidden forever. And no betrayal goes unpunished. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Was Adrian's sentence enough? Should Clara have faced consequences too? And if you love true crime stories like this one, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because there are more stories like this. More secrets. More betrayals. And more twisted truths waiting to be uncovered. Take care. Stay safe. And remember, trust is a dangerous thing. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more hidden true crime stories.